Napoleon contrived to depart with the dignity of a sovereign. If he received no passports, all he could do was hand himself over to the English because he had not dreamed of forcing a passage and fighting the English cruiser. De Craze himself thought the same, and he saw the situation more accurately than the Emperor. The Minister of Marine, warned of the dishonorable conduct of the English pontoons, knew what British hospitality was worth. The Emperor had to risk everything to avoid it in his attempt to cross. If he had been obliged to submit to the orders of the government commission, De Craze was no less liable, for from the beginning he had given evidence of goodwill towards the Emperor, and his conduct contrasted very favorably with that of Davout and Caulaincourt, in accordance with previous instructions which he had given to the commanders of the Meuse in the south. He had foreseen everything to the most minute detail, but at the moment these orders bore a lively significance regarding the departure. He wrote to the naval commissioner in a letter dated the 27th, but not dispatched until the 28th. I have arranged for the South to receive the person of the Emperor, provided it is understood, however, that if the Medusa is in advance of the South, Napoleon would be embarked upon the faster vessel, and their respective captains, Philibert and Poney, would exchange commands. Philibert had the reputation of being one of the cleverest naval strategists, and had given ample proof of his courage. Poney was less spectacular, but his loyalty was unassailable, and of the role allotted to him, he was well worthy. In fact, on the 28th decree recommended that immediately Napoleon was embarked, all communication with the mainland should cease. Then he wrote, if we are compelled to engage in battle with the superior force, the frigate not carrying Napoleon will be sacrificed to give that upon which he has embarked time to escape. The commanders, officers, and crews of the frigates will consider it their duty and privilege, and such will be demanded of them, to treat his person with every respect and with the dignity due to the circumstances and to the crown he has borne. This appeal to a courage which at that moment needed no command was unnecessary. As soon as the Emperor saw that the final hope of returning to the command had come to nothing, and that henceforth he must formally consider his public life at an end, little seemed to matter to him. His dignity forbade a secret departure. The crowd which attached itself to him rendered such a departure possible because of its loyalty. From that moment there was but one solution: to await the passports. He was told he would find them at Rochefort. Be it so. Otherwise, if he abandoned himself to fate, he who had always commanded would be obliged to obey. He bade goodbye to his mother, Fashion Hortense, the last name, who to the end had with inimitable goodness acted as mistress of the household, and who had brought to it something more than the actual conventions of perfunctory and chilly service, a kind of compassionate tenderness, who, whilst all the others would request money of the Emperor, had been thoughtful enough to bring to him her best bred kitten, begging his acceptance of it, as Pauline had done the previous year upon his departure for Elba. Kitten means a diamond necklace. I don't know why. At 5 p.m. he left Malmaison, but it was not by the courtyard of honor, where, lined up alongside the carriages drawn up there, officers and soldiers were waiting in crowds to cheer him. It was through the park by stealth. At an iron-barred gate in the rear, a hooded carriage drawn by 4 horses was waiting. Becker had had it prepared contrary to the commission's orders. The Emperor ascended with Generals Bertrand, Savary, and Becker. A manservant took his place on the seat, and they left at a gallop. At Rambouillet, the Emperor halted. He saw old Hébert, the innkeeper there, who was one of his attendants in Egypt. He had a meal, and passing into his bedroom with Bertrand, shut himself in. After a fairly lengthy interval, Bertrand emerged and told Becker that the Emperor, who was very tired, had gone to bed. At 11 a.m. on the 30th, another start was made. The carriages of the suite following. Several hours later, Tours was reached. At daybreak on July 1st, Napoleon summoned the prefect, M. de Miramon, who was his chamberlain, and who had proved in 1814 that he knew his duty. Had he received a messenger? No, in spite of the entreaties of Marilyn, who begged him to go and rest at the prefecture, assuring him that he had nothing to fear from a people full of appreciation for all he had done for his country, he set off again. At Poitiers, he stopped at 8 o'clock at the post house and asked Becker to send a messenger to the naval commander at Rochefort to ask him to come and meet him. He wishes to know the position of the frigates put at his disposal and to discuss with him the possibility and means of leaving the island of Aix at St. Masson, a blue town which the proximity of the Vendée made apprehensive of fashionable gathering assembled for the arrival of the carriage. Passports were demanded, and Becker had some difficulty in procuring them. St. Masson cheered the emperor to the echo at Niort, where he arrived at 10 p.m. He alighted at the post house, anxious for rest. The prefect Bouche, warned of his presence about midnight by Savary, returned to the inn and begged the emperor go to his own house, where he was lodged at 2 a.m. Immediately the people and the soldiers pressed forward. Becker received a reply of Bonfou to the letter written from Poitiers. The officer said he was ill, refused to come in person, and confirmed the fact that since June 27th the cruiser had so closely approached the coast that it was practically impossible for the frigates to get clear. The emperor hesitated more and more, and faced with the uncertainty of his fate was disturbed. The cheers with which he was received and acclaimed showed him his way and pointed him out as a national. He was the living soul of these people and this army. For his sake they loved each other. Without him spelled death, corruption, and emptiness. He owed himself to this France which acclaimed him. He urged Becker to renew to the government commission the proposal which he had made before leaving Malmaison, but at the same time Becker wrote, the emperor desires the minister of marine to authorize the captain of the frigate to communicate with the commander of the English squadron if extraordinary circumstances should make that course unnecessary, as much for the personal safety of his majesty as to spare France the sorrow and the shame of seeing him taken from his last refuge to be disposed of at the discretion of his enemies. 2 projects occupied the attention of the emperor: to take over again the command, even as a general, simply employed in being useful to the fatherland, or rather than fall into the hands of the royalists; to establish communication with the English cruiser, that is to say, to beg refuge in England. It is true that upon receipt of the letter from Bonfou, all idea of departing on board one of the frigates had to be abandoned. At Niort, as previously at Malmaison, the emperor could not make up his mind to proceed further. His brother Joseph, who left Paris after him, came to see him. Madame Bertrand, in company with her children, rejoined him. Then some generals. The more the councils, the more they differed, and all the more hesitation increased. Not daring to act as jailer, Becker insisted upon the emperor returning to Rochefort, and he found himself supported by the prefect, whose loyalty he had no doubt. Nevertheless, at New York, except for certain emigrants and Vendéans who had hidden themselves, there was but one conviction, and that was blue. Niort was the last town by which the emperor was regarded sovereign. When on July 3rd at 4 p.m. he set off, the prefect was on the steps of the town hall to offer his respects, and at the door of the carriage rode the chief of police, officially attired. At 8 a.m. the same day, the emperor entered Rochefort. He received, Becker wrote, from the inhabitants of the territories through which he passed evidence of their sorrow, their respect, and their enthusiasm. He alighted at the naval prefecture, where the prefect, though ill the evening previous, suddenly recovered. He was conducted to the stateroom, which had been decorated and furnished since his journey of 1808. A council of superior officers and several old sailors was immediately summoned. They decided unanimously that it was impossible to put to sea so long as the English kept so large a cruising squadron in sight of our vessels. Consequently, wrote Becker, a frigate is being prepared at Verdun in the Gironde, and a brig is being armed at La Rochelle, so that advantage may be taken of such opportunities as a cruiser is being engaged in one quarter or stationed in another to favor departure, but the success of this maneuver being anything but certain. He insists upon obtaining passports, which the English, concerned in the departure of the emperor, cannot refuse. And he concludes, we live in hope that Monsieur Otto will obtain some passports, and while waiting for their arrival, all are ready to seize the most opportune chances for the safety of the emperor. Actually, all the chances were discussed without anyone settling upon anything definite, except that the emperor seemed to have an opinion on one of them. A sloop was leaving the river from Bordeaux, commanded by Baudin, already renowned for his courage and good luck. A speedy American vessel crept into port as a neutral, a Danish vessel laden with brandy, on which the emperor could hide in a cask. They vacillated, they debated, they parleyed. Actually, they awaited the reply of the letter which Becker had written to the commission. On the first they awaited especially the English passports. What arrived on the evening of the 7th was this letter, dated the 4th. Napoleon must embark immediately. The success of our negotiations depends principally upon the certitude which the Allied powers wish to have of his embarkation, and you do not know to what extent his safety and the peace of the state are compromised by these delays. Napoleon might have departed immediately, for we have under our eyes a report of the naval prefect at Rochefort, in which he says that departure might not have been out of the question on the 29th. The commission therefore puts the person of Napoleon in your charge. You must resort to all the forceful methods which may be necessary, at the same time preserving the respect due to him. See that he arrives at Rochefort immediately and embarks forthwith. As for the services he offers, our duty towards France and our engagements with foreign powers do not permit our acceptance of them, and you are no longer to bother us with them. Finally, the commission sees disadvantages in Napoleon's communicating with the English squadron, and it cannot accord the desired permission in this respect.